strategist Angela Rye, CEO of Impact Strategies, and MSNBC contributor Sam Seder, co-host of the Ring of Fire radio show. Sam, you were there in Vegas. What was your impression?
Well, you know, the impression was a little bit sort of, I guess, dictated by the fact that I was surrounded by media. But I got to say that I think, look, you know, Hillary Clinton, I think she put out the fire in terms of the establishment concern about her and sort of closed the door on any opportunity that Joe Biden might have had. But I think what was really striking was that, you know, Bernie Sanders was sitting up there and he was going toe-to-toe. I mean, they weren't necessarily going at each other, but there was a sense, I think, for a lot of people who didn't know who Bernie Sanders was, that some type of democratic socialist was some type of boogeyman. And I think that he really succeeded in, I guess, phase one of introducing himself to the country, because I don't think there was a lot of Democratic voters who really knew much about him. And I think he was very effective in showing a clear agenda. I think he's got some work to do in terms of differentiating himself from Hillary Clinton, who did a good job in trying to sort of draw him close.
Right.
But I think this was a good first step for him. And, you know, I imagine we're going to tell in a couple of days to see if that resonated with voters.
You know, Angela, I've never been so happy as I was today to see CNN kill it in the ratings as they did last night. Not usually my reaction to that turn of events, but I was really gratified. I mean, I was watching it and I was thinking to myself two things. One, this is pretty substantive. Like we're talking about shadow banking and whether Glass-Steagall reimposition will address the financial regulatory concerns that might bring about the next crisis. But also pretty dramatic, and I was kind of wondering, like, are people hanging with this? Are people going to go there with this? And I think it's pretty gratifying it turned out they did.
Yeah, I think that people are less concerned about whether they know what Glass-Steagall is and more concerned about the fact that at least that is what's being discussed rather than how a woman's face looks or whether or not there should be a wall built that is unaffordable. Like, we cannot afford it in this country. And I think that that is the bigger issue here. We got to see Hillary Clinton supporters that cheered really loud when she said something really positive, and Bernie Sanders voters and supporters that are cheering really loud when he did. So both of them, I think, reaffirmed to their support base why they were supporting them to begin with. I also think that Bernie got quite a few extra nods. I even want a Bernie shirt that says, "Enough with the damn emails." So, I mean, there were a number of great moments, and I think for the rest of them, unfortunately, Martin O'Malley didn't show up the way that I thought he would. I actually am surprised by the fact that he came across more inauthentic than I've ever seen Hillary Clinton come across. Maybe he was too practiced and too rehearsed, but I've been saying today he was the Democratic version of Scott Walker. Lincoln Chafee, just weird. I don't even know if we have time to get into that. Who blames a vote on their dead father? And then, of course, with Jim Webb, who says that the enemy they're most proud of is someone they killed. So there were just some really epic fail moments, but there were also some amazing mic drop moments.
Yeah, Sam, the Jim Webb thing is remarkable because if anyone has an opportunity to go read the honor that was bestowed on him for what happened in that fight, it's pretty incredible what Jim Webb did. It was an amazing moment in that room because obviously people are speaking metaphorically about enemies and Jim Webb is speaking quite literally.
Yes.
Sam, the point about this sort of stature of Bernie Sanders there, I thought was also key there. I mean, the big sort of takeaway, I think, in the sort of pundit class was like, oh, wow, Hillary Clinton isn't like tripping over herself, which was never going to be the case anyway. But you know, if you said to me, on a 1 to 10, the performance of Bernie Sanders for the best hopes he could have had 6 months ago, I'd say it's like a 30 right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, the next step, I think that Bernie Sanders, I mean, to really sort of convince people within the Democratic Party that he is someone who can both win and also govern pragmatically. I mean, I think that clip that you played of Hillary Clinton saying, I'm a progressive, but I'm also someone who can get stuff done. I think Bernie Sanders has a record in the Senate of being able to work with people across the aisle, and I think that he needs to establish that to Democratic voters so they can begin to get a notion of Bernie Sanders governing. And I think, like, you know, he did a great job last night of sort of laying out an agenda. And you know, frankly, I'm also excited that there was a lot of people watching It would have been nice if Anderson Cooper was able to show and introduce questions that show that there is actually a bigger difference between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders than I think people got a sense of last night.
Although that's less, I think that's less on the debate moderation and more on a very specific pointed strategy on the Clinton campaign to essentially do as much as possible to erase that distance, and they have executed that incredibly well. I mean, that is really coming from them. Yeah, Angela,
I think you really need to be in the weeds to really understand how she was parsing in some ways. In many ways, she's adopting, I think, President Obama's strategy from 2008.
Angela, is that sort of your feeling about that kind of Hillary Clinton managing to kind of elide those differences as much as possible, except on guns, obviously?
So a couple of things. One is I do honestly believe that Hillary Clinton has a record of being progressive, both before she was ever Secretary of State, before she was a senator in New York, before she was, you know, a country-speaking First Lady of the state of Arkansas. I mean, she has a record of registering minority voters in Texas and working for the Children's Defense Fund. She actually does have a record that supports that. Now, of course, we know that evolved. We know the party evolved, and the party's still evolving now. So I think that she was very, very effective as well in saying, you know, listen, I continue to change as I read more things. There was an answer I didn't like so much about Keystone because it wasn't so much of an answer, but I think she was very effective. One thing that I would say about Bernie Sanders, he decided before they went into the debate that he was going to take the high road, that he wasn't going to attack her. He stuck to that even when she attacked him on guns. And he had an opening when he said, you know, we don't regulate Wall Street. Wall Street regulates us. He could have taken it a step further. As we know, Glass-Steagall was repealed under Bill Clinton. He could have said, and they regulated the Clinton administration. There would have been a thunderous applause. Maybe she already had it. Maybe she already had a response, but that, I think, was a moment where he could have shown distance.
That's a great point, and I think part of that is just who Bernie Sanders really is as a human being and who he's been as a politician for 40 years, and he's not going to change now, and we're seeing that. It's sort of remarkable that he is up there kind of toe-to-toe, as Sam said. Angela and Sam, thank you both.